Good evening and welcome to Overtime here on WOTM. I am Gerhard Mathengani. Listen, I know it's been a weird day in the world of politics and national news, but if we could take your mind off of it for 1 hour and talk about everything college football, let's talk a little NFL. We'll be glad to do so. We're glad that you're joining us here tonight. And I say us because I am rejoined by our sports historian extraordinaire, Mark Everett Kelly. He's back in the house, knows everything about the stats, the storylines, everything going into these major games. He was with us before the holidays, and now we're glad to have him back here after the holidays. First off, before we jump into football, how was your holidays, your Christmas and your New Year's?
It was different.
Yeah.
But
I
am very glad 2020 is over.
Yeah, I'm sure you're not alone.
So yeah, I'm not gonna make it all nice when it really was. I hated 2020. I'm so glad it's over.
I know you're not the only one that shares that sentiment, and good to see it gone. And hopefully this year will be a little bit better. On the sports side, it looks like we're going to have a good year. We started off the first day of the year with the SEC team going into the college football playoff, Alabama winning, and then Ohio State winning. They are now the teams that will match up next week on Monday night in Miami for the College Football National Championship. As we break this national championship down, we will start with the Crimson Tide and Alabama now getting ready for this championship game. This is footage of them on the practice field over in Tuscaloosa, getting ready for their game. They went 2 hours today in full pads. As you take a look at Alabama, as you've seen them, you've watched them all year long, you followed them all year long, saw them in the SEC championship game and in the semifinal game. What are some of your takeaways so far with this Crimson Tide football team?
Well, obviously I thought Alabama was the best of the four teams going in. Now, I know Clemson gets a lot of publicity, and Ohio State, when Dabo Swinney said Ohio State was 11th, he didn't mean in talent. He meant that they didn't play enough games. He said everybody in the top 10 played at least 9 games. That's how he did that. So he took a little bit of flack for that. I like Dabo Swinney as a coach. I think he's done great things for Clemson. So I thought that was a little unfair how they criticized him after that. Ohio State, no doubt, has had the amount of talent to play amongst these teams. That has never been a question. The question was, did they play enough games? That didn't matter. They broke whatever the rules were, they upended them, and they allowed them to be there. They certainly do belong there on talent-wise. You saw that. Justin Fields overcame any problems he had last year in the red zone, and they pretty much dominated. Once that late hit came on him, I think that was a big point in the game because Clemson kind of took a step back there. Maybe wasn't as aggressive, and then Ohio State just took it off and ran from there. But as far as Alabama, their ability to score was always going to be the key. Could Notre Dame keep up with them? And you saw early on them scoring at such a pace that really set the tone early. And then Alabama kind of, we'll see a little bit later, kind of just, pulled off the gas a little bit, whether it's they didn't want people to get hurt or whatever. Personally, I like to see Notre Dame get spanked, but that was a little disappointing for me. But you know what? And I think some people have a problem with, does Notre Dame belong there because maybe their one loss against Clemson really wasn't close, and a one-loss ACC team, is that better than a one-loss SEC team in Texas A&M? But either way, this is how it worked out. Alabama won. Clemson won. Clemson lost a game against Ohio State. Was a great game last year. We got another rematch. We got treated to another one of those. So overall, it was a very good weekend for those who really love college football because you saw a lot of good football being played.
No doubt. And I think the key thing I keep telling everybody is I think Ohio State did not deserve to be there as far as merit goes, but they took advantage of their opportunities. As you take a look now to this game as they move forward, what are some of the key things, if you were to point out a few key things that Alabama needs to do in order to come away with a win on Monday night?
Well, I think, as far as Ohio State, maybe people thought the same thing about Alabama in 2017. When they made it, beat Clemson, beat Georgia, and then won the national championship. So maybe the same thing happens to Ohio State. But Ohio State's got a little bit, Josh Fields, is a quarterback that can get out of the pocket. I know he's got an injury too. I mean, I don't know. That showed a lot of guts after he got hit in that game, and he definitely had some problems with his ribs. But he threw 6 touchdowns. He's mobile. That usually gives Alabama a little bit of problems because they don't really defend against that type of quarterback very well. You saw it last year against Auburn. They had a struggle with that. So I think that's where maybe they could be a little bit susceptible, where Ohio State, is going to be able to score with them. And as long as you can score with Alabama, you have a chance in the game. I'm not saying that you have a great chance, but you have a much better chance if you could put up consistent points, and Ohio State can't.
No doubt. And Steve Sarkisian, who's the Alabama offensive coordinator, and Alabama's their offense took the podium today. They'll give offense a shot to talk to the media, and the defense a shot to talk to the media. It was Steve Sarkisian's turn to talk about what he saw from the tape and from what he has seen so far from Ohio State all year long. Here's his breakdown of the Ohio State secondary.
Well, clearly they're all very talented players. You know, I think the two corners have great length. They play the ball extremely well when it's in the air. Thus, you know, you see the turnovers. They can play man-to-man. They can play zone coverage. You know, I think one of the keys to passing the football is doing a great job up front. You know, we're gonna have to protect well when it's time to throw the football, so we can allow Mac the time and the receivers time to do their thing down the field. And then we're going to have to win one-on-one opportunities when they come. And I think, you know, when it's a talented group back there, that's the challenge, is to win your one-on-one battles. So that's what the focus will be on.
Mark, you always do a great job with these numbers. Once again, you do so today. Really helps our show out. Now, as we take a look at this first set of numbers here about the games in the college football playoff overall, Alabama's played in 10, Clemson's played in 10, Ohio State 5, and Oklahoma 4. You see the records there and the championships. What are some of the things that stick out to you as both these teams have at least 5 games in the college football playoff, and Alabama, of course, looking for another national championship?
But here's the thing. They played in the very first college football playoff back in 2000, after the 2014 season. Ohio State won. That was with Urban Meyer, one of 5 coaches to beat Saban twice. This year, I think, when you're looking at both teams, they're both so athletic.
Right.
And Saban, when he gets a chance to beat a team he has lost to, being the last time he played Ohio State, he's lost. He's 18-2 in revenge games.
Right.
So that poses well for him. As far as Ohio State, though, a lot of people didn't think they deserved to be there because of the games played, so they're kind of on a mission to prove. You know, other years they were considered the best team, and they lost. Like last year, people thought they were the best team, didn't make it to the championship game.
Right.
Now they have a chance to kind of prove everybody, hey, you know what? We really belong in the same conversation with Alabama and Clemson. People who most people think they're the best 2 teams in the last 5 years.
No doubt about it. And also, we took a look at Alabama specifically in the college football playoff. We'll take a look at some of those previous results going back to that semifinal game against Notre Dame, and then moving forward into this year and to some of the previous years, taking a look at some of the results and the matchups there. What are some of the things that stick out to you?
Well, notice the only semifinal loss was to Ohio State.
That's right.
Every other year they made it at least to the championship game. 2 of the losses were to Clemson in the championship game. The other loss was to Ohio State. So they're 7-3 overall in the college football playoff. So you know, most people would say that the team that Alabama has the biggest problems with is Clemson.
Right.
Okay. But Ohio State, you don't really know how Alabama matches up with them because it's been a while since 2014 when Urban Meyer was there.
Right.
Now they're a little bit different. Maybe they could score a little more than they did.
Right.
But they're still a big-time powerhouse, and the Big Ten wants to be up there with the SEC. Okay, you saw the Big 12 kind of smack the SEC with Oklahoma losing. So I think the Big Ten wants to do the same thing and say we belong amongst the best conferences as well.
It is an impressive resume, taking a look at just the mere fact that the college football playoff hasn't even been around all that long.
2014.
As many games as Alabama has played in, and they've played in some close games. They've also played in some kind of tougher games. That Washington game it ended up being not a blowout, but a larger scoring game, 24-7. And then we, of course, have seen those blowout games, as we talked about earlier, going all the way into the 40s and high-scoring matchups as well. So Monday night, I think, should be no different. Another great game between Alabama and Ohio State, this time for all of the marbles. Well, coming up next here on Overtime, what we'll do is we'll talk about the Heisman Trophy. Now that it's over with and we know who won, we talked about it last night with John a little bit. We'll readdress it this week, and Mark has a pretty good breakdown of one DeVonta Smith, the Heisman Trophy winner. We'll talk that and more next here on Overtime. Well, it's official. The Heisman Trophy is going back to Tuscaloosa. Saw the one that DeVonta Smith held up yesterday. There was also one in Bristol, and there's different copies of it. We'll have at least one in Tuscaloosa and then one on DeVonta Smith's shelf. First off, we've had some conversations off air, and I think that you think what I think, that the voters got it right here in the situation, getting DeVonta Smith the Heisman.
Absolutely. I thought DeVonta Smith was the best player in college football this year, without a doubt. He dominated at his position like no player has since Larry Fitzgerald when he was in college. And I think when you look at people say Trevor Lawrence, but Trevor Lawrence missed 2 games. Mac Jones played well enough to be a Heisman Trophy winner,
right?
But clearly DeVonta Smith was the best player. Najee Harris too. He deserved. Jalen Waddle, if he could have played. All those guys deserve to be in a conversation, but clearly Smith separated himself. If you look at, especially over the last 10 games of the season,
right,
where he really stood out, over 90 catches, over 1,400 yards, and 19 of his 20 touchdowns, 6 100-yard games, or 6 150-yard games, 2 200-yard games, or 3 200-yard games. I mean, there's so many. Even against LSU, or was it against Auburn, where he just exploded in the first half.
Right.
I mean, but when he didn't make a play, that was when you were surprised. You saw the catch he made against LSU, where he basically thought the ball was three yards up into the stands, and he jumped over like 11 feet to make the catch.
Yeah.
When he makes plays like that, he is a playmaker.
Right.
And even in the semifinal, in the SEC championship game, having 15 catches against Florida, a consistent guy to go through. Always know that you're going to count on him to make a big play.
Right.
And that just shows, because the Alabama, and a team full of stars and a team full of offensive weapons,
right,
he was the best.
He was the best, and he also ended up getting it done on special teams as well, coming away with a touchdown on a punt return against Arkansas earlier on in the year. Both DeVonta Smith and Mac Jones were finalists for this award, and I have a kind of a pointed question. Based on how everything came out in the voting and whatnot, would you say Alabama has the best 2 players in college football between those 2 guys, Mac Jones and DeVonta Smith?
I think they had the best 4 players in college football.
As in 1, 2, 3, 4?
Yes.
Okay,
I mean,
wow.
you put Jalen Waddle with Najee Harris,
Yeah.
2 guys that normally would have been in that conversation. Okay, the 4 best offensive players in college football. You could say Trevor Lawrence belongs in that in that conversation. Okay, and maybe Kyle Trask is. Okay, but the talent level of those 4 guys, if they were on 4 different teams, would be absolute superstars, be the best player, and they've somehow played together where all of them are able to get statistics, all of them are able to get recognition, and they love playing together.
Right, exactly. And it was a good moment last night as DeVonta Smith won the Heisman Trophy. They all call him Smitty, or the Slim Reaper. And after sleeping on it yesterday, he and Mac Jones, the 2 finalists, talked about it today and being able to have the Heisman Trophy winner in Tuscaloosa.
Last night, it was a great feeling, and it was just a blessing just to be in that situation, to be with Mac and Coach Saban here last night. But now that's in the past, and now it's on to Ohio State.
It's like a video game, man. You're up there, and you get to see your teammate win the Heisman Trophy, and you feel like that's just one of the coolest things that you can do is have a chance to be with them, especially in kind of the crazy year that it's been, and just be able to be the first guy to kind of congratulate him. I'm just so happy for Smitty and his family and his city and the whole 9.
So you take a look at DeVonta Smith, who was the first receiver to win the Heisman Trophy in 30 years, and one of the last guys to do so is Desmond Howard. Now, it's been about 30 years since the presentations. Obviously, the presentation this year came in 2021 because of the coronavirus pandemic. Normally, it would come at the December of the previous year. But as you take a look at both these guys, of course, Howard also had to play a little special teams for Michigan as well. But the aspect of the dynamic between what Desmond brought to the table and what DeVonta brought to the table, both pretty incredible.
Yeah, I mean, DeVonta's a better receiver, obviously.
Yeah.
Desmond was kind of a tweener, a guy that could make big plays. He really wasn't a number 1 guy. You saw him. He got drafted by the Redskins, who had a great offense in 1991. Everyone thought with Art Monk and Sanders and Mark Rippon, they were going to be that much more explosive. And he really didn't have that good of a pro career. But he was a very good weapon at Michigan, and he was able to, kind of hit the seams. He was very good. Everybody remembers the video of him returning a punt and then doing the Heisman pose.
Exactly.
So I think that he was a personality. You see him on ESPN right now. Everybody loves him. He's a great guy for the University of Michigan. But DeVonta Smith is clearly a better player or a better receiver than Desmond Howard was. Howard was very good on special teams too, but Smith can be just as good on special teams. I mean, you see him returning punches, almost like easy for him.
Right, exactly. And also, I think Smith is a little smoother athlete, smoother through the cuts, and obviously with 7-on-7s and everything that goes on right now in the world of sports, I think you're able to fine-tune your receiver abilities a little bit better now than you did in 1991, which makes him a better receiver in that case. And Desmond obviously had, like you said, the great career on the college level, had some success with the Green Bay Packers in the NFL, and I think a lot of people expect DeVonta to have a glorious NFL career as well in that one. So Alabama now has 3 Heisman Trophy winners, and so now DeVonta Smith joins Mark Ingram and Derrick Henry winning that big-time award. And in your opinion, how big is that for the University of Alabama to have now 3 Heisman Trophy winners all in-house?
Well, remember how many before Saban got here?
0.
Yeah. Okay, and that's with one of the greatest. I mean, he's so legendary, Bear Bryant. I was watching the game against Notre Dame, and a picture fell with him on it, and was like you had to have silence. Like, how could a picture of Bear Bryant fall? Like, this is a legend. Okay, and Alabama didn't have a Heisman Trophy winner before him. Now they've had 3. 2 running backs, which obviously is what Alabama was known for. Now they're more of a wide open passing game, and you see now the dedication that players put into their position. You see clearly in DeVonta Smith. He chose to stay back when he could have been a first-round pick. I definitely believe he would have been a first-round pick. And you see the talent level, how much he got better in a year when everybody was facing the unknown. This guy clearly stood out.
Exactly. Well, in the year of 2020, in the year of everybody doing everything on Zooms and on screens and whatnot, there was a great piece of video that the University of Alabama put out congratulating DeVonta Smith on his Heisman Trophy. And who else to do it? Mark mentioned it before Nick Saban. There were 0 Heisman Trophy winners, so who else to do it but the first Heisman Trophy winner, Mark Ingram.
To be named the best player in college football and join the Heisman fraternity is an incredible honor. Today, I'm excited to welcome the newest member, DeVonta Smith. And while we gain a great player, we are also adding a great man to our ranks as well. Those of us who have won in the past know that the Heisman is the ultimate team award.
The 2009 Heisman Trophy is awarded to Mark Ingram.
The winner of this year's Heisman Trophy is Derrick Henry.
You and your teammates put in the work behind the scenes and long hours to ensure that the attention to detail every day in practice translated to game-changing plays on the field.
Goes to the end zone. Oh, what a catch! DeVonta Smith.
Zone up goes DeVonta. Touchdown! Wow!
You and your teammates will share this honor, knowing it took each and every one of you to make this moment possible. And while winning the Heisman is the highest honor in college football, this year it means something more. In one of the most difficult years in the history of college football, you embodied the character and perseverance that is expected of a Heisman Trophy candidate, and did so while displaying an extra level of discipline and toughness than has been required of those who came before you.
The 2020 winner of the Heisman Trophy, DeVonta Smith of the University of Alabama.
It is my honor to welcome you not only to the Heisman fraternity, but also the growing Alabama football Heisman family. Congratulations, Roll Tide.
Well done there by Derrick Henry, and Henry obviously, or not Derrick Henry, I should say Mark Ingram, doing a good job with the voiceover. Derrick Henry also sent out a tweet with his high praise of the 3rd member of the Heisman Trophy Club from the University of Alabama. Both guys also getting ready for the NFL playoffs this week. So congratulations for both of them. You mentioned this earlier about the last 10 games for DeVonta Smith, doing most of his damage in these last 10. And what I find impressive is the fact that he's doing this with everybody knowing where the ball is coming, largely after Jalen Waddle's injury. What are some of the things that stand out to you about the Slim Reaper here over the last 10?
Yeah, it's funny because the first 2 games he had 6 catches, 8 catches, and then Waddle got injured after the 4th game. But really, down the stretch, everybody knew who the playmaker was. I mean, they had other guys. Obviously, Mechie was a big-time playmaker. Najee Harris getting the ball. They've got a number. Billingsley was a tight end, wide receiver body. I mean, or you could say vice versa. But the other thing about Alabama is the brotherhood, okay?
Yeah.
You have these guys who have won Heisman trophies, and you saw how Saban pushes on these guys, but they love him because he gives them discipline, he teaches them how to be men, he teaches them how to be accountable. You saw how nuts Saban went at the end of the game against Notre Dame.
Right.
And people thought that was because of a penalty. It wasn't. He was yelling at his linebacker who was out of position.
Right.
But that's what most people love about Saban, is he doesn't let those little things go because that's how you learn.
Right.
And even in a year where there's all this trauma, these guys came together, and there was a certain brotherhood and togetherness that he constantly preaches. And you see by how good of young men these guys are, how accountable they are, how much they love each other, how much they love the University of Alabama. And I think it's clearly has a lot to do with Saban.
Yeah, he constantly talks about playing to a standard. They've done that this year. They can get the ultimate standard with 10 SEC wins and the national championship this year. Of course, they won't be given the national championship. They'll have to earn it. Ohio State's on the other side of that field on Monday night in South Florida. We'll talk about the Buckeyes next here on Overtime. Welcome back to Overtime here on WOTM. Mark, we talked extensively about Alabama in that first segment. Here now in the third, let's talk about Ohio State. Obviously led by Justin Fields, having a phenomenal season this year. Specifically, what did he do in that college football semifinal game when they played Clemson and beat Clemson? What were some of the things that Justin Fields did to you that impressed you outside of maybe some of the top throws and just being a good leader?
You mean besides me calling him Josh Fields, I think?
Yes.
Yeah, Justin Josh. Well, I think last year you saw that in 2019 they struggled in the red zone, okay? Especially in the first half. They were up 16-0, but they could have been ahead even further. They were 0 for 3 in the red zone as far as scoring touchdowns.
Right.
This year, in the first half, 4 for 5 in the red zone. By the time the first half was over, they had 35 points, and that was with Fields, Justin, having problems with his ribs. Yeah, I know. I won't get it wrong again. 385 yards, 22 for 28. Last year's 30 for 46, completing almost 80% of his passes. 6 touchdowns, 1 pick. You notice that these quarterbacks now, with their completion percentage, if they're not over 75%, they're no good.
Right.
Okay,
right.
Mac Jones consistently is up there. Kyle Trask, you saw, was up there. These guys, they have very little room for error.
Right.
And especially against Clemson, which, again, once that guy went out, once that late hit occurred and he got called for spearing, something that he's had problems with, that I can't remember the Clemson's linebacker's name, but he's one of the key players on defense, and that's a consistent problem he had. Ohio State was a little ticked off at that because they felt that was a cheap shot. And then you saw Fields get up and kind of get better after that and show the kind of grit that most people don't know if Ohio State has that raw toughness to compete and get down and dirty with some teams, and they did.
Exactly, and Justin Fields now will have another opportunity for the second straight year in order to play, or he had a second straight year where he did play in the semifinal game. And Mark, you did a good job breaking this one down as well as you broke down Justin Fields today, comparing what he did in 2019 to what he did this past year in 2020 with the completions as well as the passing yards. Obviously, he stepped his game up to a different level when you can have the same number of incompletions, 6, as you did touchdowns,
right, that's true.
6 in this game against Clemson. Obviously, he played a whole lot better, and he'll need to do so again on Monday night.
Well, yeah, I think the key thing was red zone. Teams that win score touchdowns in the red zone.
Right.
They don't score field goals.
That's right.
And that's what they were able to do. The other thing is that there were some key points last year in that game against Clemson where Ohio State up 16-0, Clemson getting the ball like midway through the second quarter. They got a late hit call on third down that extended the drive, led to a touchdown, and the game kind of tilted there. And that's really where Clemson began their comeback, and they wound up winning by 6 points. And Fields had a chance to lead them down the field for a game-winning touchdown, but there was some misunderstanding with him as a wide receiver, and he threw the ball into a space where there was only a Clemson player.
Right.
So I thought that he really redeemed himself. I think everybody on Ohio State, once they saw that Dabo had them 11th ranked, and they didn't really understand why. That kind of added a little more fuel to the fire, and they came out like a team that had a purpose.
Yeah.
And that's something you can't always say about Ohio State, that people have been critical of the way they performed in big games.
Right. Do you think he's got another one of these kind of games left in him, another one on Monday night? You saw the improvement from game 1 in 19 to game 2 this year. Does he have another one in game 3?
Well, the motivation maybe isn't there. The hatred or the disrespect that Clemson gave him, maybe. That, you always, Jordan talked about always needing a purpose for a specific. Now, Jordan, could get bored, score 60, and yawn. But most of these guys, they can't do that. But any incentive that you can provide for a coach or the bulletin board material, so to speak, can help. You can't really do that with Alabama. At Alabama, you're too busy worried about how many points you're going to need to score, because if you make any mistake, you'll pay for it. So I think it's a little bit different against Alabama, a team that is one of the best as far as scoring. You can't make mistakes. It's Clemson, which they had a revenge game against.
Exactly. Justin Fields has not been available to the media as of yet, but there are other Ohio State players that are talking to the media about not only this year, but now playing in the national championship game. Here's what they had to say today.
This year as a whole has just been wild, and to finally reach this point. So we're playing for it all. You can't write a better story than that.
We haven't been silent about how hard it's been. It's still tough, even though you got to finish strong. And the message that we've been kind of just saying to teams, you got one more. There's nothing else after this. This is why you play football. This is why you come to Ohio State.
Got to win by 1 point to get the national championship. And that was the goal at the end of the day. At the end of the day, we got to put the best on the best and then just go from there, play different things, and just go from there.
You mentioned that Alabama lost to Ohio State last time they played, and which brings up kind of an interesting dynamic and something that we'll take a look at that you brought up. Nick Saban now has the shot to get even with the team that's beat him. A little different this time because Ryan Day wasn't the head coach of Ohio State last time, but this is a kind of a small group of coaches where Nick Saban has a chance to get even, so to speak, some of the rare coaches that have beat him twice.
Well, I think taking a look at this is a little bit interesting because coaches that have beaten him twice in his time at Alabama, there's only been 5 of them. One of them was Urban Meyer, who he lost to last time. Meyer beat him at Florida, then OSU. Look, Gus Malzahn got fired, and he beat him 3 times. Something nobody else did. Maybe he had a little hard time explaining that to, well, I beat Saban 3 times more than anybody else, but I still got fired. I don't know what else they wanted from the guy. Anyway, Les Miles at LSU. LSU was a program that he helped build, Saban, okay? Dabo, the problems they have with Clemson. And Hugh Freeze. Who is Hugh Freeze, besides getting caught for making phone calls you shouldn't make on his personal phone, cell phone, to maybe people he shouldn't? He's at Liberty now, and he turned around their program. Okay, so everybody makes mistakes. He had time to redeem himself, but they actually lost. As hard as it is to believe, Alabama actually lost to Ole Miss back-to-back seasons in 2014 and 15.
Right, and Hugh Freeze, one of the few coaches that give him some trouble, and you kind of see Ole Miss probably leaning back in that direction one more time where they are right now with Lane Kiffin. Well, you are not done with talking college football. Coming up here, we'll talk about a big decision for one of the best quarterbacks in the land, and Steve Sarkisian getting ready for his big gig with Texas. That and more is coming up next. Welcome back to Overtime here on WOTM. We are now talking college football decisions. It's really decision time for a lot of players trying to make the jump or deciding if they should make the jump to the NFL. One of the most prestigious quarterbacks and probably one of the best quarterbacks and highly hyped quarterbacks we've ever seen, Trevor Lawrence, making that decision today. Mark, what were some of your decisions or some of your thoughts on Trevor Lawrence, the Clemson quarterback, obviously highly ranked, a Heisman Trophy finalist this year, making the jump to the NFL? What are some of the things that you not only you've seen in his game, but as you take a look at college football careers overall, kind of where do you rank him among the all-time greats?
Well, I mean, a lot of people think this is a once-in-a-lifetime guy. Okay, 6'6", big, strong guy, has a great arm, and is mobile. So he's in a category that the Peyton Mannings are in, that the Drew Bledsoe was in when he was taken number 1 overall. Troy Aikman was taken number 1 overall. Maybe not Jeff George, but he was taken number 1 overall. The type of talent he is, and also the winner he is, and he's a good young man. He played for a great head coach, comes from a great program. So there's a lot to like about him. Coming from where I come from, people were very disappointed that the Jets didn't keep losing to get him. They already have, I believe, a quarterback that has been treated unfairly in Sam Darnold. Now that Adam Gase is gone, maybe somebody can go in there and teach him the way he should be. But this guy will go number one, no doubt, because Jacksonville needs a quarterback, and he is too good of a talent to pass up on. As far as the number two guy, if the Jets do not take DeVonta Smith, that would be a huge mistake. Because as far as game changers, game playmakers, he is one of the best playmakers I've seen. Now, Santana Moss was a pretty good playmaker, but he was a little small, okay? I remember the Jets drafted him, but he came out of college with that type of personality and with that type of ability. DeVonta Smith is bigger, he's stronger, he never drops a pass. He can run with the ball. He's like a more athletic Keyshawn Johnson, who the Jets took number one in 1996. So I believe that if they don't pick him number two, they are going to really regret it, because right after them is Miami in the number 4 spot. You know, and you don't want to see Tua and DeVonta hooked up again.
Get back at it again.
Okay?
You have shades of that national championship a few years ago, when went from Tua to Smith for Alabama's national championship.
I've seen Marino and Duper and Clayton too much in my lifetime. I don't need any more Dolphin quarterback wide receiver tandems.
Exactly. Trevor Lawrence had a really classy goodbye to the folks out at Clemson. Here's how he said goodbye, leaving after his junior year, making the jump to the NFL.
Looking back on it, I hope my legacy at Clemson is that I was a great teammate and a great person overall, just more than football, more than how I played. Each game is just how I treated people. I want that to be the main thing that I'm known for, and I feel like over the last 3 years, that's the thing I've kept as a priority, is just treating people well and being a good person. So I hope that that's my legacy when I leave here. And I've learned a lot from Coach Sweeney and just from all my coaches. Really just Coach Streeter, offensive coordinator, Coach Elliott, all the position coaches, support staff, everyone has been so good to me and treated me like family since I've gotten here, and that faith aspect has really been the most important thing in my life. To all my teammates over the past 3 years, it's been the most fun ride I've been on. I'll look back at these 3 years and have the best memories, winning a national championship, winning a lot of games, and just not even that, but just more so all the little moments, being in the locker room, being in practice, spending every day together, and just having those memories of just us laughing and cutting up and just enjoying life together. Those are things I'll remember forever. You know, when I look at my life as a whole so far, just this journey of 21 years, the most formative years have been my time here at Clemson. Like I said, it's taught me how to be a better man, no doubt. And that's the biggest takeaway, really. Obviously, it's made me a better football player, but that's kind of secondary to what it's taught me about life. And I really feel like I'm a man now, and I'm ready to take on those challenges, and just super excited for life ahead. The best is always yet to come, but man, I'm grateful for Clemson, and I'm going to miss it. But I just want to say thank you to everyone that's supported Clemson, all of my Clemson family, whether that's fans, my teammates, my coaches, and my immediate family. I mean, I just am so thankful for you guys. I wouldn't be who I am if it wasn't for y'all. There's so many people that have helped raise me up, and I can't wait to see what God has next for us. But my time here has been amazing, and I'll be a Clemson Tiger forever.
Pretty good goodbye there from Trevor Lawrence. Another goodbye being said is from an assistant coach, Steve Sarkisian, taking over the job at the University of Texas. He will stay on those Alabama's offensive coordinator, juggling both things. And I'll ask you 2 questions. Number one, about the job, and then juggling both things this week in your eyes. How difficult will this week be, and then how difficult will the task be when he gets to Austin?
Well, I think the task in Austin's going to be a little more difficult. Obviously, at Alabama, not much as far as immediate winning. You didn't have much pressure on them in Alabama. Obviously, if you don't put up points consistently, that kind of pressure is going to be on against you, because you have a lot of other people that could do that for Alabama that are as talented as offensive minds. But he really did a great job here. He gets another chance to coach a team and to kind of show that he's learned the lessons at Saban rehabilitation camp that coaches need.
Exactly, and Steve Sarkisian talked about that today. Not only about, he talked a little bit about what Nick Saban's done for him, but then he also talked about being able to juggle the job both this week and trying to move forward with Texas. He had a pretty great response about what his work week looks like heading to the national championship game.
Clearly, I'm excited about the opportunity at Texas. It's a tremendous one for me. Looking forward to get started there. But like the commitment I made to Coach Saban 2 years ago is the same commitment I've made to these players. And that's focusing on this game, giving this game the attention that it deserves so our players have an opportunity to go out and play to the best of their abilities. My week for me would be a normal game week as if I hadn't taken the Texas job. So my focus is on the game. I'm prepping for the ball game. Any of the spare time that I do have, that's getting my attention for the job at Texas, whether that's staffing or recruiting, things of that nature. But I would say my week has been as normal as it could be and has been of game planning and prepping for the ball game.
So that was Steve Sarkisian talking about this job, and I'm pretty sure it is hard to kind of gamble and toss these two jobs up and juggle what this week will look like for him. But I'm pretty sure he'll have another excellent game plan for the national championship. What about for in your opinion, for you, what does Alabama need from its next OC?
It needs a guy that can follow what Lane Kiffin did and what Sarkisian has done, and this new kind of wide open passing game that fans really love and that makes Alabama a lot better and a lot more dangerous offensively. They're going to have the weapons come in, as you see with the recruiting class they had. And, you know, the quarterback next year is supposed to be on the level of someone like Mac Jones. Hopefully he's learned from him. So I expect to see the same type of thing. It doesn't really matter when you're dealing with the type of program that they deal with, because you kind of learn into it, and the things that you were weak at, you get stronger at, and that's why these guys develop so much better and learn a little bit more from a guy who knows how to win, knows how to discipline, knows how to set the tone, knows how to make the players accountable. All these lessons they learn on his staff, which are invaluable.
Exactly. Development stuff is really, really huge when it comes to Nick Saban, the Crimson Tide, and I'm pretty sure he'll make a great hire, as he typically does in these situations. Coming up next here on Overtime, we will switch over from the gridiron to the court, talk a little bit of basketball. Alabama, red hot. We'll talk about the Crimson Tide next here on Overtime. Welcome back to Overtime here on WOTM. Okay, let's talk college basketball now. Alabama don't look now, but they're red hot right now. Won a few games and knocked off Florida last night, knocked off number 7 and undefeated then Tennessee. They're still undefeated in SEC play. I know it's early here. I know most people's minds are still on the football season, but Nate Oates is doing a pretty good job here in his second season.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the way Alabama's played defensively. They've held all 3 of those teams under 40%. Their combined shooting percentage for those 3 games for the opponent, Ole Miss, Florida, and Tennessee, was 35%. They held Ole Miss to 1 for 13 from three-point line. Florida, 4 for 20. And off the bench against Florida, Keon Ellis and James Ross combined for 31 points. So they're getting bench scoring, but they're really playing good defense, which is causing the other team to kind of get out of their game offensively. And they've held them all also to under 70 points.
That was another big part of it. I think that the defense, as you mentioned, has played great, but also at the same time, Alabama last year, and really for the last about, I would say, 5 to 10 years, they've been known to be streaky. Yes, they'll pick up a big win over Kentucky, but then they'll lose a game that they shouldn't lose. How good of is this a sign for Alabama basketball fans that not only are they off to a nice little start, but they're playing pretty consistently, as you said, on both sides of the ball?
Yeah, well, I think that's the thing. You want to be able to set the tone defensively. I misspoke. They held Tennessee to 4 for 21 from three-point range. Florida shot 9 for 20 from three-point range. But overall, they've held their 3 opponents in those games to under 26% from beyond the three-point line, which is a major thing to do in college basketball because it's a little shorter and the game is so based on a three-point shot now. So if they can hold teams and play that kind of defense, that's automatically going to put them in most games. You can hold teams under 70 points, that's going to keep you in most games in the SEC. Can they play consistently with the big boys? We'll see when they play Tennessee again. Tennessee shoots better. And then Kentucky, which started off really poorly out of conference, has won their 2 conference games. You can never forget about that.
Exactly. Kentucky, one of the blue bloods of college basketball. Nate Oates talked about the state of his team after a couple of impressive wins in the SEC last night, knocking off the Florida Gators.
I told their team I thought it was a character game. We'll see what type of character they've got. You know, they could get a big ego, could lose their humility and think that, you know, they've got it figured out, or they could show what type of maturity that I thought they had. I told them what I thought they'd do. I thought they'd come out and answer the bell like they need to. I wasn't all that happy with their effort in the first 8 minutes of the game, but I think after that they picked it up, and I think they showed what type of team they are and kind of regrouped after that 7-0 run that Florida started the second half on. You know, and Florida did a good job coming out ready to go in the second half, and we didn't. So I thought our guys answered that little run there well too, and I think they showed a lot of character tonight and just, you know, leaving their egos at the door, playing with some humility, playing hard, you know, giving effort, covers up a lot of mistakes, and I think we did a lot of that tonight.
So Alabama off to a good start on the gridiron and also off to a great start on the hardwood as well. They have another big SEC game coming up next here. Coming next here on our program, we will jump to the NFL. It is playoff time, believe it or not. All 256 games are now done in the regular season. We'll jump to the postseason. We'll talk that coming up next here on Overtime. Hard to believe, but 256 games all in the NFL. Not a single cancellation. Lots of delays and some weird games like on Tuesdays and Wednesdays and Thursdays. But all the games are now in. And now, Mark, it is time to go to the postseason. The NFL changed their rules this year. Had another team in the playoff. And so now 14 teams, 7 in each conference.
Yep.
As we take a look now at Wild Card Weekend and some of the teams that will be playing Saturday and Sunday, 3-game Saturday, 3-game Sunday, what are some of the things that stand out to you as we get ready for postseason football?
Buffalo's really surprised me.
Oh, yeah.
Josh Allen's played unbelievably well. He's straightened out his ability. The biggest critique of him was his completion percentage. He's really taken care of that this year. Buffalo's sound on both defense and offense. Get to play against the old AFC East rival, the Colts, Rams and Seahawks, two of the better teams out west.
Right.
Brady, 40 touchdown passes at 43.
Right.
Gee, I wonder if he settled the debate about who was really better, him or Bill Belichick.
Exactly.
I wonder what that was now.
That divorce is now clear.
Yeah, I think he won all the alimony in that divorce. The Ravens are playing very good in the AFC. Remember last year they were 14-2.
That's right.
They set an NFL record, being the first team ever to run and throw for 3,000 yards. They can do both things equally this year. Lamar Jackson has a lot to prove, like Peyton Manning once did in the playoffs. He's 0-2. The Titans have Derrick Henry. They made it to the championship last year when Tannehill won 2 playoff games throwing for under 100 yards. Last time that happened was in the mid-'70s with Terry Bradshaw in Pittsburgh.
Right.
So he's the key there. The Bears kind of lucky to make it Saints' second best team in the NFC. And the Browns and Steelers last met 2002. It was the last time the Browns made the playoffs.
Right.
Same place, Heinz Field. Kelly Holcomb, starting quarterback for Cleveland. Cleveland up 33-21 with 3 minutes left. Tommy Maddox leads them back. Pittsburgh wins. That was the last time Cleveland made it.
Exactly, and this is one of those weird situations where the only team that's on the road that's favored is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Just very quickly, just name the team if you see them. Any of the lower seeds beat the higher seeds? Do you see whether it's Colts, Rams, Washington, Ravens, Browns, or Bears winning this weekend?
I give the Rams a shot against the Seahawks. I think I like the Bucs against Washington. The Browns or the Steelers are very good. Cleveland might have because of the familiarity, and obviously I think Baltimore is the team to watch to go to the Super Bowl.
Exactly, and I think Baltimore's playing red-hot football right now. It's a really, really good pick. We'll see what they do in Nashville against the Tennessee Titans. Well, coming up next here on Overtime, what we will do is we will have our final closing thoughts, and we will pick the national championship game. We'll have a score from Mark. I'll make a prediction as well. We close up our time here on Overtime. Thank you. Still texting. Welcome back here to Overtime on WOTM. Our final closing thoughts here as we close up shop. This is our final show of the week and the final time I'll see you before the results of the national championship game. Your thoughts on the game and your score prediction.
I think it'll be a high-scoring game.
Yeah.
Both teams' offenses are spectacular. I think a defensive stand somebody in the second half, maybe by an interception or maybe leading to a missed field goal or a block punt or something like that. Some special team play is going to make the difference. I like Alabama to win. I'm going to say 42-36.
I like
How's
it.
that?
I like it, and I'm in that same neighborhood, and I think Alabama can add some big points in late. I like 48-28 Crimson Tide on Monday night. Thank you so much for joining us. That is when we'll be back, is on Monday night. We'll have some reactions in the game and also talk Tuesday with John Holder. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week.